Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Beth Dolan, the Dean of the College of Health at Lehigh University, and I'm excited to get us started this afternoon in the last installment of our colloquium series this academic year. First, a couple of words about the College of Health at Lehigh University. The College of Health opened in 2024. We're graduating our first cohort this May. We're very proud of that. And we offer undergraduate majors as of fall, we offer undergraduate majors in biostatistics and health data science, in population health, in community and global health, and in health, medicine, and society. A year from now, in the fall of 2025, we'll offer a program in collaboration with the College of Business focused on business and health. At the graduate level, we offer the MPH and an MS PhD in population health. So we're excited to connect with you all today around this focus of this colloquium series on disability independence, or maybe interdependence. We've talked about how to think about that over the course of this year, and that's been a very fruitful conversation. I'm happy to announce that this series is co-sponsored by the College of Health, along with the Office of Interdisciplinary Programs in the College of Arts and Sciences, and with Good Shepherd Rehabilitation. So Good Shepherd in particular is sponsoring this particular talk and has it connected us with James Durham, who we're super excited to hear from today. I think you will enjoy it as well. I'm really thrilled about the partnership that's developing between Lehigh University and Good Shepherd Rehabilitation, and the work that we can do together around improving the lives of people with disability. So I just announced this and then turn things over to Amanda Clark from Good Shepherd. Next year's colloquium series that the College of Health offers will be focused on the vital conditions for health and well-being, and in particular on best practices for community health research. All right, so Amanda, happy to have you take over the stage here and introduce James.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here today, and we are really happy to have all of you here. It is my pleasure to get to introduce James to all of you. James Durham is a motivational speaker, financial planner, and founder of a nonprofit organization, TBI One Love. In 2011, James was involved in a near-fatal motorcycle accident and endured a severe traumatic brain injury. After more than 6 months of intensive inpatient and outpatient rehab services, James began volunteering as a volunteer and mentor at Ter Memorial Hermann Hospital, where he actually had received his rehabilitation. With his resilience and never-ending optimism, James then graduated from Florida State University with a BS degree in communications and a minor in psychology, and right after founded TBI One Love, all within 4 years of his accident. TBI One Love provides education, inspiration, and connection through sharing information and encouraging survivor stories. It's James's passion for sharing his journey and message of positivity, faith, and spreading awareness of traumatic brain injury that continues to fuel him today. Please join me in welcoming James to today's colloquium.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm glad that we're all being able to get together, especially on Friday Eve, to wrap up a great day of the week, but most importantly, have a session to really help us understand how if we share our story and most importantly, believe in ourselves, it will really help us grow. Now, before we begin, in case any of you have to get up and go, I've got something that means so much to me that I can't wait to the end. Today, I want to take you on a personal journey with me to share the most important aspect, like I mentioned, how if you believe in yourself and share your story, it will help you grow. For this example, we're going to go back to San Antonio, Texas. And for those of you that are not familiar with the state of Texas that much at all, it's about 5 to 7 hours between Dallas, Fort Worth, and San Antonio. It depends on the time of the year you're traveling and most importantly, who is driving. us men kind of sometimes don't drive the correct speed limit. We might go over or be in a hurry, but nonetheless, that's kind of an idea of where we're going. Let's go there. So this is gonna take place on September 22nd in 2011 to be exact. I had just moved there for a promotion in the work I was doing at that time, and I had been there for about a month, give or take, and I really enjoyed the new location, the new team, and most importantly, the new part of my life to kick off, which I know we have all experienced such an amazing new chapter, if you will, at different areas of our life. Back to the example. Well, being in the apartment industry at that time, we had fully leased our property, which was close to about 200 units. So to reward our teamwork, they wanted to go out to a team dinner, if you will. But at that time, I thought, you know what, I just want to go home. It's been a long day, long month, etc. We can celebrate during office hours. But they kept motivating me. Hey, you know what? We need to do this. You're a big part of it as well. That's the whole point of a team. So I thought, okay, why not? I had checked on the weather. It was a beautiful night out. Why not? And at that time, I had owned a motorcycle. Before I begin and talk more about this example, I want you to understand that when I say I owned a motorcycle, I didn't ride it like Sons of Anarchy. And for those of you that didn't watch that show or don't know exactly what I'm trying to mention, what I'm saying is, number one, I didn't drive crazy and act like the road was mine and cut people off, try to weave in between cars, etc. Number two, I didn't speed. And number three, most importantly, I always, keyword, always chose to wear a helmet, even if I was going in walking distance. Rather be safe than sorry. So I checked the weather, like I stated, beautiful night out. Thought I could ride my bike. I wasn't going far from my house. It'd be easy to go to dinner, come back. Had a great time, a great event. It was very rewarding to be around team members and thank everyone for the hard work, etc. And then on the way home, I was going about 5 lights away from my house, going over an overpass of the ongoing highway underneath. And just like that, my life changed in a second when I was involved in a very bad carburst motorcycle accident and I died. That's right, I literally died. What happened was I was going over the overpass, and unfortunately, a car coming towards me was not paying attention to oncoming traffic. The last thing that I remember is right when I went over the overpass, I looked to my left, a car hit me. I flew over the handlebars and I hit a light pole. If that light pole was not in contact, the availability, I'm sorry, to hit that, it would have been a very bad scenario, and I actually would have flown over the bridge on oncoming traffic underneath me on Highway 1604. On the positive aspect, though, I could have gone out in style. What if I would have landed on like a Lexus, a Cadillac, a BMW, some kind of nice car, if you will? That could have been a good way to go out, right? But nonetheless, I'm very thankful that that pole was there. The next thing I know, I was laying in the arms of my grandfather, who I had not seen at that time 17 years. He passed away 4 days after I had turned 6 years old. So it had been a very long time, but we caught up, had a great conversation, told me things that he had been doing since he passed away. And then he shot me up in the sky and I had a full on heaven experience, which is a whole nother area of discussion. If we have time, I know we're going to have a Q&A at the end. If you have any questions about that, I would be happy to answer. But like I said, that's a whole different chapter. Let's go back to the scene. Thankfully, there was an individual there that saw the accident, and she is actually who called the local hospital, University Hospital San Antonio. Thankfully, with her calling, demanding there was an ambulance immediately, and they said, give us with the time of the evening being 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and with traffic, we can have an ambulance there in about 30, 45 minutes. She demanded life flight because how bad the accident was, the scene, and most importantly, my situation. So I'm very thankful that she was also there. The helicopter got there and they shocked my heart a time or two and they got it to kick back on. And I was transferred to University Hospital, like I mentioned, San Antonio. And I'm going to provide a visual while we're doing this right now as well. So what's really great about this aspect is, again, when I got there, it was very helpful, and they had to do a bunch of surgeries, and they called my family and my parents in Dallas, Texas. And like I said, that's about a 5 to 7 hour time change. So they called my parents, and because my license was in the back seat of my motorcycle, I got checked in as John Doe. As you can see, these are some scenes from the accident. So they didn't know who I was or where I was going or even where I lived because once again, my driver's license was in the back seat glove box of my motorcycle. But thankfully, my mother was able to describe me during their drive. Obviously, they were trying to speed to get there because they didn't know what happened. And my mom was able to describe me thanks to my tattoos. I know everyone might have some different examples or different opinions about tattoos, but nonetheless, when my mom described them, that's what was able to really locate me and who I was and really help what was going on. So by the time my parents got there, they met with Dr. Augusto Parra, and he explained the multiple surgeries that I had and what the outcome was going to more than likely be. Some examples of the surgery I had is my left leg shattered because my shifter went in my leg and came back out. My spleen exploded, my whole face broke, and I sustained a severe traumatic brain injury on my left temporal lobe. The outcome was that if I would wake up from my natural coma, and my natural coma was going to be about 5 to 6 weeks, give or take, if I was to ever wake up, keyword if, that I would be hospitalized permanently, very difficult to really be independent. My speaking ability, because it's the left temporal lobe, would be one means yes, two means no. Have a memory span, let's say, of about 5 to 10 minutes max per day. And most importantly, the communication aspect would be very difficult because it would be like someone was speaking Portuguese to me. So my response would be very difficult, completely off the subject, and most importantly, not really making any sense. So he recommended that all that we could do is pray because obviously they've done everything that they could medically. But obviously, the power of prayer really helped because that really kicked off and went everywhere. We had people praying, not only, of course, in the state of Texas, but also all throughout the United States. And also, we have family and friends overseas. So that really had a big outcome of what brought me to where I am today. 5 weeks later, I started to wake up. And when I say woke up, I don't want you to assume, like, okay, you just woke up, kind of getting back slowly into it, and that was it, right? No. What happened is when I woke up, it could be 5, 10, 15, 20 seconds, then minutes per day. And then I really had the ability to stay up a little bit longer. Not fully active. I really didn't know what was going on, where I was who, and the ability to function, speak, etc. But nonetheless, I really was starting to find myself, if that makes sense. I got transferred to Tier Memorial Hermann. As we had mentioned, as Amanda had mentioned, I'm sorry, during the introduction, Tier Memorial Hermann is where I was a patient, and that's also where I got to return and meet new patients, and I still do to this day. When I went there, Tier Memorial Hermann is a full gauge brain injury rehabilitation center. So I really had to learn how to be the new me. And I'll be honest with you, that was one of the most frustrating times in my life. I had to learn how to be, part of my French, disabled. I had to learn how to really, move in a chair or have the ability to communicate via hands or very little, learn everything like I was an infant all over again, but with the newest version of what they predicted or were told I was going to be able to do because how my injuries, including the brain injury, most importantly, was. But obviously, because of what I fed my own mind and the motivation I told myself, even though I wasn't able to really communicate that well, it really helped me not only push even harder, but most importantly, believe in myself. I want to give you a visualization as well. This is my grandfather I had mentioned, just to kind of let you know who I was talking about. Here's me at Tier Memorial Hermann. As you can see, the craniectomy in the top side. This is me in my chair. This is me learning how to stand up and walk again, really motivating myself mentally to do what I was told I could never do again. And that really helped me every day, all day, continue to believe in myself, motivate myself to get where I want to do, and most importantly, be released or get out. When I got out of Tier Memorial Hermann, I went back to San Antonio to have my craniectomy put back in my skull, if you will. And then I got transferred back home to Dallas Fort Worth to go to the last final stage of rehabilitation, which was Center for Neuroskills. And I'll be honest, I used to think, why do I need to do this? It's stuff that I already know how to do once again, etc. But when I again kept motivating myself and believing in myself and finding positive things to remind myself, even during difficult times, how powerful I am and going to be able to do these things. Of course, when you have the relationship and motivation from others, that really helped me thrive continuously, not only during the hospitalization, but also during the rehabilitation stages. Instead of being there in the ballpark of a minimum of 3 to 5 years, I got finished in 6 months. Again, because the power of believing in myself, which I want you to do every day, all day, as much as you can. When I got released from there, my childhood dream was to be like my parents and go to Florida State University. Thankfully, because of the ability, again, believing in myself, I really had that availability to do that. I learned better the way that my brain was rewired. I had an amazing experience or experiences that I had never experienced before my injury. And I'm not saying go get a brain injury at all, but what I'm giving an example is that everyone's journey, everyone's different chapters of their life are going to unfold new opportunities. But you personally have to find the positive or positives that are really going to be more beneficial to you by you, if that makes sense. And I'll explain a little bit more of that. So when I got into Florida State, I was thriving, really enjoying it, of course, living the dream, if you will. And I got to be just like my parents, where I also met my wife there. Some images I'll be showing, these are CT scans. But nonetheless, really had the availability to do that. Graduated, as Amanda had mentioned. And when I graduated, I really had that mentality and thought process of, what am I going to do now? It's going to be, very difficult to try to get into the working environment, not fully, but I'm going to have to explain, okay, this is a brain injury, blind, deaf, etc., difficulties, communication, and so forth. Because even though it does not look like it, I still do have a brain injury. But most importantly, that gave me the availability. Okay, why not start a network or an organization, if you will, that can be the best of both worlds? Not only spreading a positive form of education, motivation, guidance, etc., for those that have been touched by any form of disability, but especially a brain injury. Of course, you can also help with awareness and prevention. So I thought, okay, let's do that. And that really unfolded into amazing ripple effect of different speaking opportunities, meeting different people, and of course, helping individuals that have really thrived in the brain injury network or ballpark, if you will. So by doing that, it really helped me again get to where I am today. But most importantly, I had to keep on believing in myself and having the ability to share my story. Not saying that you should not share your story, but and feel bad about it. You should share your story and be thriving and be so happy you have the ability to do that. Because we live in such a judgmental world that people sometimes don't think that their story matters. But it's very beneficial to really share your story and do what you can. Because again, when you do that, that is really going to help you thrive. I'm trying to get back to the Zoom session. Here we are. Okay, that's really going to help you thrive and be different. And most importantly, really help you be who you want to be. And most importantly, do who you want to do. So let's just say if some of you are going through an experience, if you will, and really wondering, okay, well, what can I share from this? What can I do? Why does this happen to me? Instead of focusing on the bad, you need to find at least one positive thing a day. And when you focus on just one positive thing a day, it has been scientifically proven that we're actually creating new neurological pathways. And I know this sounds so intense or so scientifically correct terminology, if you will. But what's great about this, when you have this availability to really share your story and create positive things out of it, you're not only going to help others, you're most importantly going to help yourself. So you have the best of both gifts, because helping others is one of the best things you're ever going to be able to do. Does that mean you're going to get something out of it right off the bat? You may. But most importantly, when you're sharing that positive form of education, motivation, and guidance, you're also learning on different ways that you can be better for yourself. You're creating better opportunities for others. And most importantly, you're really making a difference. Now, I know with this segment, disability independence, there are so many different forms of disability. There's not saying there's just a small amount, which is good. Everyone's different. But most importantly, everyone has the availability to really communicate, relate, and most importantly, work together to help make lives better. Now, I know we're going to have some Q&A segment towards the end, so I really hope that some of you will really have the availability to ask any questions. I really want to help answer them, but most importantly, I really do want to thank Lehigh University and the Good Shepherd for not only the opportunity to return to this aspect, even though it's via Zoom, but most importantly, the impact that they are having on their community. So before we do this Q&A, and I want to thank them once again, but I also want to thank the audience for taking time out of your Friday Eve special time frame to really allow us to work together to communicate and educate each other on disability independence. But I know I did a lot of talking, and I'm kind of giving different examples, especially with the photos. Sorry about the sharing screen aspect. But if I can mention anything to you, I want you to remember two things. Most importantly, one, if you can do anything, I want you to believe in yourself every day, all day, because that's the best investment that you're ever going to make in your life, and only you can determine the outcome of that. And number two, always remember what your mind believes and conceives, you will achieve. Those are the ABCs in life. I want to thank you all once again. If you have any other questions after this Q&A segment, please feel free to contact my organization, TBI One Love, on social media, and we'd be happy to answer any questions and, most importantly, build that long-term friendship. Thank you, Lehigh University, for this opportunity of a lifetime, and Good Shepherd, you as well. It's amazing the networking opportunities that you create and the motivation you really help individuals in general, but most importantly, individuals in our ballpark of having any form of a disability. I look forward to getting some Q&As. Thank you once again for this amazing opportunity. Let's see.
There we go. Thank you so much, James, for sharing your story and your belief in the power of positivity. Of course, coming from a rehabilitation organization, I'm a little biased, so I'm just curious from your perspective, with the number of months you spent in rehab organizations, what are some of kind of like the key life lessons or key takeaways you took about how to live with a disability from your rehab professionals?
And that's a really good question. And before I answer that, I see also, Nate, I'm sorry that the screen was not sharing. So for the audience, if you didn't see
it actually was. It was.
Oh, what? Okay, I just want to make sure. Well, Amanda, there are multiple things that I learned. Obviously, everyone has to learn a series of things that's during that rehabilitation stage or stages, because that's why you're there. But some of the long-term advantages that I learned from my time in different stages of the rehabilitation, both hospital and non-hospital, was the comfortability, learning to grow with the newest version of myself and going through those stages. Of course, I was comparing majority of the time, which is common for anyone, of our old self, if you will. But what really helped me understand was learning, growing, understanding differences that I have to address or let other people know that these are some things, plural, that I live with. But it really helped me to have, again, more positivity aspect in myself, the situation, have faith everything's going to work out. And instead of sitting still and focusing back on the beforehand and comparing, just bending my knees and leaping forward to keep moving.
Very good. Thank you. We have a couple of questions coming in. When talking about paying attention to the positives in our daily life, what are your suggestions or tactics for tools to fight those kind of creeping pessimistic thoughts that tend to come up?
That is a really good question. One of the tools that I like to do, and I've had other people say this works for them as well. Everyone's different, of course. But when you're trying to, let's say, focus at least one positive thing, or you're going to do this and find multiple, which is a very rewarding aspect, is write things down. I'm not saying you have to do it all at once, but let's just say if you're like, okay, towards the end of the day, okay, let me think about what I did today. When you write down one positive thing, I guarantee you're going to start to being able to write down multiple. So instead of thinking, I don't know if that day was that good, but then when you look at the list you made, like, I I actually did have a good day, because you're able to notice more when doing that. Of course, you're like you had mentioned, you're going to have those negative or creepy thoughts, however you want to word them, and they're going to pop up. That's natural. I'm not saying you're going to completely erase them from happening, but nonetheless, what's good about that aspect is when you do that, instead of having them enter your mindset and thinking like, okay, why, or playing the finger pointing game and blaming other people why it happened, change the perspective and say, okay, look it, this is a thought, it is what it is. I want to change the way I think about it, which is also going to change the outcome of the whole situation. Like, for example, let's say if it's um, bad weather. Why is this? Okay, well, it is what it is. What can I learn from it? Instead of doing whatever my schedule was because of that situation or situations, maybe I need to reschedule my um, activities or things I need to do to be better for myself by myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, instead of focusing on the negative, thinking about, okay, well, how can I change my actions to affect the negative so it doesn't continue to impact the rest of your day, week, etc. And you mentioned journaling, and conveniently enough, we have a question about journaling. So it sounds like you were doing some journaling through the difficult times. If you did you go through the journal entries yourself? Did you share them with others? She asked from the perspective of reflective writing as a way of sharing our stories.
That is a very good. I'm glad that was brought up, and I can answer all three of those. Yes, yes, yes. Not only, of course, writing it down is good because, again, you can do it whenever's best for you. Beginning of the day, middle of the day, end of the day, night, whatever the case is. But most importantly, when you're doing that, you're actually clearing your mind and making sure you're writing something down. It's like if you have an idea, you're writing it down, but it can be in a journal aspect about yourself, situation, day, whatever the case may be. Also, you're taking weight off your shoulders so you can think better, act better, live better, however you want to word that. Your second statement, sharing it with others, that's a great way to share, because verbalization or communication is not the best forte for everyone, especially when you have in a disability world. We do, it's very common. As you can see, I do have some communication errors as well, but we do get very frustrated or kind of second guess ourselves, and we apologize. But when they read it, you don't have to worry about that. It makes you feel better mentally. So you don't have to worry like, okay, did I word that wrong? Or maybe I said the wrong word, or I keep skipping. There's different avenues, but sharing is good. And when you're giving someone that, even if, let's say, if you're talking to someone and they can read it, but they don't have the availability to communicate back, then it motivates them to write stuff down or give you stuff to read about them. It's a different form of sharing because not everyone has either the comfortability or the best way to communicate verbally.
Very cool. Thank you for the tips. I think those are probably tips that we could all take with us in our daily life.
Yes, ma'am.
What are some of the gaps in either support or resources that you have experienced along the way with your recovery, and kind of what were some of your largest hurdles to creating a new life for you after your accident?
That's a good question. I think what's good, again, about some of the support groups is, again, sharing our story so people feel a different connection with you. Because when you do that, it's going to be A or B. A, most importantly, people can relate to you because they have a disability or an invisible disability. They feel welcomed. You feel welcomed. Just you're playing the game of catch. B is they don't know that you have that. They cannot tell. Let's say if you have like a brain injury, you have an invisible disability. So you're educating them, but you're also informing them, okay, this is why certain things may happen, or this is something I've been through. What if then at the same point they feel comfortable and, hey, I want to share my story with you, or an event, or stories, whatever the case may be. That has really helped. And I think that's also really helped with the new changes that I've had to experience and adapt with due to my brain injury. It helped me feel more comfortable about myself. It's also helped me really connect with people that can understand it, whether it's brain injury survivors, non-brain injury disabilities, caregivers, also individuals in the working environment and the education environment as well. Creating a new form of different support system accommodations, if you will, that can help people, because of it, again, when you hear the word disabled, people assume that you have to be a certain level of disability to be classified as disabled, if that makes sense. Like when you see a disabled parking spot, you think, okay, the person has to be either getting assistance or being in a wheelchair. But if you're able to, most importantly, share your story and on top of that, feel good about yourself, because our mindset is everything. You're really going to have a much more positive advantage in your own personal growth, but you're going to leave a very big support group and imprint everywhere you go.
For those that may not know, can you elaborate a little bit more on the types of, I guess more so what is a support group, or what are the opportunities for peer support for maybe someone else who has an injury or disability, and how they how they might be able to get involved?
That's, of course, I think support groups are great. I mean, and what's also great in today's world with the power of the internet, I mean, there's so many, whether it's on social media, you can Google it, because if Google doesn't know it, then it's obviously not true. We all know that. But obviously, most importantly, when you can do that, the support groups can be like we're doing via Zoom, can be in person, can be recordings, whatever the case may be, but they're also very beneficial for individuals and or their support, as in caregivers, family, friends. There's different avenues where everyone gets to learn, grow, and most importantly, work better together. So if you have any support groups in your area, I suggest you locate them. Try to see if it's something that works, it's near your area with your time frame. If it's in person is better. That's what I like, because when you're doing stuff in person, you really get to connect more with them, especially if they're in your community. You get to build those relationships, not only, of course, to feel more comfortable or motivation. Oh, I need to go to this event. I know people. But also, if you have questions or want to get together outside of the events, you're really going to have that availability to communicate more, create that personal one-on-one, and most importantly, with that relationship, you have an outside source of support, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some questions back to the actual accident. Someone is asking if you could elaborate a little bit more on your experience of when you died with the accident, and about the encounter with your grandfather.
Of course, yes. So, like I said, the last thing that I remember is I flew off the handlebars, looked to my left, I saw the Honda logo, I saw the driver and a young male, which was her son, and then I flew into that light pole. The next thing I knew is I woke up and my grandfather, who I showed a photo of, was holding me in his arms. At that time, it had been 17 years since I had last seen him. And when I last saw him, I was very young. So I have some good memories, but not very detailed, if you will. We had a conversation. I asked, why are you holding me? My motorcycle was there. I need to get my bike. It's on the laying on its side with the back tire spinning. And he said, no, you don't need your bike right now. It's not your time yet. I want to take you up and see other people, but you're going to return here when the time is right. I promise. Then he shot me up in the sky, and it was very cloudy, very warm. And then he set me down. So if I'm him, he was massaging me like this, and then we had a family dog came running up. He passed away when I was 17. He was 15. He came running up. I was petting him. He was licking my face. Then we had a family friend who passed away during a motocross race. He came walking up and he said, hey, bikes kill me. They're not going to kill you. I want you to tell your family and my family that I love them and can't wait to see you again. Then we had my dad's grandfather, my great grandfather. We used to go up and hang out with him all the time. He pulled up in his Chevy C10 blue pickup truck and he said, James, it's not your time to be here yet. I'll get you down there if you want. Otherwise, you're going to be up here spending time with us and you will return, I promise. And I started laughing at him and I said, his name was Pops. I said, Pops, I'm not getting in the car with you because you're not able to drive. The last thing that I remember of him before he passed away, he went blind in his left eye. So I knew if I was in the car with him, I would get blamed. He would probably get in trouble, etc. But the God wink, if you will, is I'm fully blind after my accident as well in the left eye. So I saw him. Then getting out of the passenger side of his car was grandma, his wife, and she had some food. We all know grandmothers like to make sure we're eating all the time. And she said, when the time's right, you're going to return, but I got to make sure you eat while you're here. So I had a great conversation with them, all hugged them like we're having a conversation now, but not via Zoom, of course. And that was just during my normal coma time of 5 weeks.
It sounds like probably some of those interactions and conversations you had with them kind of kept spurring you on throughout your rehab recovery journey.
Of course, yeah, and especially during the rehabilitation stages, and as we know with the disability, especially with the brain injury as well, there is no set finish line because you're going to adapt with it. You have to accept it, most importantly. So even during those times when I wasn't able to speak, not not only at all, but not even close to the availability I am today, still mentally, like I had mentioned, believing in myself and reminding myself of certain positive things, especially that experience I had, I knew that good things were going to continue to happen if I just kept moving forward.
So talking about your rehab journey, what are some of the things about your interactions with your clinicians that you felt were very helpful in your healing? And maybe what were some of the things that you wish would have been better about some of those interactions?
That's a good question. Most importantly, what really helped with my success rate and being able to function, most importantly, was the relationship that they created. And we all know clinicians and physicians, all that, they see a lot of people all day, every day, but they still take that time out to make an impact and care. They not only took care of me, they also care for my family, but also that motivation that they made possible and that relationship status nonetheless. Things that the only thing I can think of that could have been better, and some of you might agree, some of you might laugh, is I just wish when they kept telling me you need to get up and do this, we're going to take you down to PTOT. I just wanted to sleep or lay down. I wasn't able to really function that well, but I was like, no, please, let me just stay here or let me go home. I don't want to be here. So they could have just let me do what I wanted, I guess you could say, but if that would have happened, I wouldn't have been able to really thrive and move forward as I was during my time in all different stages of rehabilitation, but also to where I am today.
As a clinician myself, there's definitely a delicate balance between giving someone that autonomy and that need to rest, but also having to be that kind of constant external motivating factor. So it
Exactly.
certainly resonates with me that it's a little bit of a double-sided coin there as
It
a
is. It is. The
clinician-patient
motivation is
relationship.
good. And once they do
Yeah.
that, you understand this as well with your expertise, is once they do that, it really does rewire our brain and our own lifestyle to where it's like, okay, we can't just sit still. We got to keep moving. We got to do stuff. We got to be more motivated instead of like, oh, I just want to sit still. Rest is good. Don't get me wrong. But the impact that all PT, OT, physicians, clinicians, if I'm saying that word right, sorry, but all those aspects, they do not only, of course, when we're engaged with them, have a positive aspect in our life at that time, but like I mentioned earlier, they leave a positive imprint and really helps us later down the road as well.
So assuming, right, that a lot of people in this audience are related to healthcare, population health, disability fields somehow, I guess what would be your piece of advice either for us personally to take into our daily interactions or maybe to educate others on how to treat those that might have an invisible disability or ways to interact with people not knowing what their circumstances might be?
Hmm. I never thought I'd be asked what are ways that we can. You all are the expertise and the coaches for individuals
But
like
we
me.
all can always learn more, James.
I think one thing that I can think of that's really helped me, and I know it's helped others. That's why I do return to CNS, Center for Neuroskills, my rehabilitation. I also go back to Tier when I can, not only, of course, to meet different staff members. A lot of mine have transferred to different hospitals. Some are there, so I get to see them as well. But most importantly, meet new and current patients at that time in their family to motivate them. And I think what's good is with your current patients or future patients, if ever able, with any of your past patients, or even if they weren't your patients at all, is give them the ability, even if they can't communicate, like we were saying, with the journal aspect, is let them learn about others that have been in their shoes, that had to go through the whole same thing, because we all know that when we have to go through changes, it's very difficult for us to accept it. We get frustrated. We don't want to do that. We convince ourselves, I don't have to do this. But when they have a great source, not only of motivation from all you experts, but also where they have someone they're like, okay, look at this is someone like you. They've been through the same thing. They might not look at like that now, but they also have the same history or something similar. Kind of goes with the aspect of sharing your story. It's really going to help them not immediately, but it's really going to help them understand, like, okay, maybe this does make sense, or it's going to motivate them. Okay, go. I want to be just like that. I want to not only be out of here, but I want to be better. I want to be able to function, etc. Like this individual or individuals that you're sharing have had the availability to do, if that answers it correctly.
And I think what I can try to extrapolate as well from what I'm hearing from you and from other individuals I know with disabilities is don't be ashamed or trying to hide your disability. Empower people to be kind of upfront and transparent about their disability so that it doesn't really leave any room for that awkwardness or the assumptions to be made. So really trying to empower the people around us to, if they have a disability of any kind, to be upfront and frank and willing to educate people about it.
Exactly. Especially because, again, there's so many different forms of disability. And again, how when people hear that term, two aspects come. One, it's like, oh, you're disabled. It doesn't have to be a horrible thing. It's unfortunate why someone is disabled. Don't get me wrong, but there are more positives of what the individual has been able to do after or been able to exceed, and most importantly, the difference that they've been able to make by themselves by believing in themselves and sharing their story. That's a lighthouse for so many people, both disabled and non-disabled. And two, they're educating others that, okay, with a form of disability, that doesn't mean I'm on a walker or I'm in a wheelchair. There's so many different forms, and a lot of them are invisible disabilities. So it's a great form of education, motivation, and inspiration for others to learn, grow, and most importantly, accept with the differences that they have to go through in their own journey.
Through your work with TBI One Love, what are some of the common themes or learning needs that you hear from other TBI survivors?
That's a really good question, especially because all brain injuries are different. They can be staying the same way, but different areas, different outcomes, etc. A lot of different things that have been addressed is most importantly, the power of support, supporting others, like we've been discussing, and helping other disabilities or helping other patients, members, families, okay, we can relate. That's a great thing. Another thing, of course, like we're speaking today, believing in yourself and sharing your story, because what we feed our mind is our appetite. That's a huge aspect. And also the power of positivity, believing in ourselves, of course. But when we do that, and I understand people say, oh, believing in ourselves, that's really not that powerful. But when you believe in yourself, you're making happiness a choice. And that doesn't mean like, okay, I'm going to believe in myself just once or during a certain time frame, and then we're done, right? You got to motivate yourself and keep reminding of, like we were discussing earlier, writing down positive aspects every day, once a week, whatever works best for the individual, because that's going to, again, not only remind them of great motivation for themselves by themselves, but also scientifically proven, like I mentioned, you're going to rewire your brain to be able to focus on positive aspects a lot more easier than ever before.
And if people want to learn more about TBI One Love, where could they go to find more information?
Of course, any form of social media, or they can go to the website, tbi1love.com.
Nice and easy. I like it.
Yes, ma'am.
We have a couple related questions here. As far as those who might be leaving the rehab setting and going to be integrating back into the community, what are some of the most common or biggest challenges? And do you feel like the communities you've lived in or you have visited have adapted well to promoting accessibility?
That's two really good questions and very important. To answer the second one first, yes, areas that I've had, they've really adapted well. I mean, when I say that though, that doesn't mean they're done. They're going to continue to adapt because changes are always going to be happening. But that's also, like I mentioned, with those support groups, accommodations, whether it's professional, educational, or in personal stages of their life, really doing well, especially with education, different treatment centers that are getting placed everywhere is really educating on different forms of disability, especially brain injuries, as we all know, since Dr. Amalu found concussion, well, not found, but really labeled it as a brain injury instead of a headache or a mild. That's still getting addressed, but nonetheless, that's changing. With the one before that, leaving the rehabilitation, and what the main theme of this is getting the ability to, it's not immediate, but become independent is very difficult. But what has helped me, even though wanting to be independent, and I'll be honest, it was like I was a little kid again. I was like, oh, I'm going to move out of my parents' house. Woohoo! I'm going to live by myself. I can't wait. But again, it goes back to this whole aspect of this engagement. Believing in myself, reminding myself, of course, it's not going to be, woohoo, there's going to be challenges, but I had to focus on the good and accept the difficult and or bad, however you want to label that. But there were different avenues, and some of the difficulties again is, when getting out of that, you have that mentality, not only us, but also caregivers, families. Okay, like what are they going to do now? What is going to be the next stage? We just have to try to find little steps and things that really work best for ourselves, but most importantly, keep moving forward. Keep trying to do little things. The little things really are the big things. What I'm symbolizing is let's say when we get out of rehabilitation, we're just gonna go boom, we want to go right back to the work environment, or boom, right back to the school environment. That doesn't mean it's going to be immediate. We might have to do little things to like riding a bicycle, slowly, start moving. So that way, when we get to where we want or the point can be, we're going to be able to handle more instead of trying to do it immediately after, not finding something, getting frustrated, having a negative reaction, or most importantly, a negative environment of not believing in ourselves. And then we're just going to keep going down this rabbit hole, if that makes sense.
Mhm. So one of the conversations we've had frequently between Good Shepherd and Lehigh University's College of Health is that there is oftentimes a very big difference between ADA guidance and true accessibility. So when you're interacting with people through TBI One Love, through your peer support groups, what are some of the things that you think could be done better in general in communities to actually promote accessibility that go beyond the ADA regulations?
That's and every community is different, but I think something that could be addressed is more educational activities with everyone in the community, more educational experiences where you have individuals that can give their own personal opinion of difficulties and acceptance that they've personally gone through their journey with. And I think it'll also be good, especially for caregivers or families, to be fully engaged as well. Because as we know, everyone in here in this engagement can relate to this. A disability affects everyone because everyone has to make adjustments to help the individual that has the disability. But also, when they're making that adjustment, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing because then they're going to be able to open up new pathways or new doors, if you will, for individuals that either are similar or on a completely different aspect. But I think for that to begin, there needs to be more community activities and educational courses that can really help not only learning from the professionals like all of you, but also, again, have individuals that really fall into that ballpark that have either been trying or have tried and succeeded, but had to make accommodations, become active, um, to really help them in their own personal journey, if that's understandable.
Yeah, so it sounds like you think one of the most powerful things we can do is that initial sharing of your story, connecting with others so that the community you live in understand the
Exactly.
needs of the people living in it. And so
And I
once
think
again, another impact of sharing your story isn't just to offer the support and positivities, you could actually affect change in the community you're living in.
exactly. And I think, again, another positive ripple effect that you will have with doing that, and I know that individuals will completely agree with this. When you do that, you're going to have, and I'm not saying it's going to be immediate, but who knows, it might be. You're going to have a reaction to where people are like, oh, hey, you know what? I heard you explain this, or I saw that our city, our community was doing this, etc. We know someone, or we personally are dealing with the same thing. So you're going to have a ripple effect of connecting the dots, and you're going to build that relationship status to where, wow, I thought I was just doing this for myself, but I'm really helping out other people, like I had mentioned. And it's really going to bring out a lot of people you didn't even know were really available to help you and can relate to you in your community as well. Unless you already have an idea, but there's going to be more. Not everyone knows if everyone that's underneath that same ballpark at the beginning. They have an idea, but it's even more rewarding with sharing your story because you're making a positive difference in other lives and most importantly in your community as well.
I think like you said, especially when it's a more traumatic and unexpected event, like whether it's a stroke, brain injury, spinal cord injury,
Exactly.
you might have very little to no information about the resources in your community or even abroad because you didn't feel the need to be aware of them prior. And it's kind of all of a sudden people's lives change, and it's not until they start speaking up that they're probably going to find what they need.
Exactly. Yes, ma'am.
Sure. Well, James, we really appreciate your time here today. Again, if you'd like to learn more about James's organization, it's tbi1love.com. There's all kinds of support and information on there. He has a podcast. And even though he is still a Texas boy, TBI One Love expands across the nation. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you all once again for this opportunity. Lehigh University, College of Health, Good Shepherd, and of course, all the attendees today. You are phenomenal. I hope you have a great, once again, Friday Eve, and I hope we'll be able to do some more work together. Thank you so much for this gift.